Welcome to TAPintoTV, produced out of East Main Media Studios in Little Falls, New Jersey. On this week's episode, we speak with Bob Putt of the American Business Associates about business development and networking during our new normal. And we talk with Frank Supovitz of Fast Traffic about his book, What to Do When Things Go Wrong. But first, Stephanie Willoughby speaks with Dan Gasby of B. Smith Enterprises about his late wife and the recent controversy involving the Aunt Jemima brand.
I'm joined by Dan Gasby, partner and co-founder of B. Smith Enterprises.
Stephanie, thank you for having me. Glad to be with you too.
We've got lots to talk about this morning. I want to start by having you introduce our audience to your late wife, B. Smith, and if you could tell us a little bit about her legacy and the business that you guys have created together.
Well, Barbara Smith, better known as B. Smith, was a woman who came out of Western Pennsylvania, basically an all-American girl who had a high school degree, had a dream of being a model. Through her own sheer will and determination, and after going 3 times to the then living Wilhelmina Modeling Agency, convinced Wilhelmina to take her in. And from there, it was never easy because she was a dark-skinned Black woman with not necessarily straight hair, but she overcame that, modeled successfully in New York, then went to Europe, became very successful there, modeled there, came back, and then from there went on to develop a restaurant with partners and create B. Smith's Restaurant in 1986, which was then one of the few Black-owned restaurants in midtown Manhattan, whereas she used to say the tablecloths were white and basically all the patrons were white too. From there, she did over 100 radio, television, and print ads. She wrote cookbooks, modeled. I met her at the opening of the restaurant, but we became a couple in 1991, and from there took her first cookbook and sold it as a TV show, and that's began the launching of the B. Smith Enterprises and B. Smith, the brand. From there, we developed 2 other restaurants. We developed a TV show. She is still the first African-American woman to have a line of products at Bed Bath & Beyond. She has done food products. We had a magazine that actually predated Oprah. Magazine. She was the first African-American woman to have a national magazine. The list goes on and on of what she did and what she accomplished, always with casual elegance, an understated style and demeanor, and a belief that it's about bringing people together. We weren't multicultural in the sense of trying to convey just who we were as African-Americans or who she was as an African-American woman. She believed, as I do and still foster, the notion of transcultural, moving across cultural lines, bringing the influence of who you are as a Black person who lives and resides and grew up in America with the history, but being more than that, looking beyond just your own Blackness and looking at bringing people in under, as she used to say, B. Smith is about bringing together a diverse group of people under one stylish umbrella. She broke ground. She was not afraid. She did it in her own inimitable way, and she always did it with style and class. But she was lace, but she was also steel.
That is my favorite description possibly of anyone. And it's so interesting it's surreal to be talking to you because the 2 of you have been a part of my life since I can really remember. It's just, be it in the cookbooks and the modeling, in the influential way, it's so surreal to be chatting with you about the legacy of your enterprise and of your wife. It's a beautiful thing. You and B share a story that happened a while ago that really changed the course of possibly how you guys operated and how you wanted to see the world operate in the way that you're explaining. Can you tell us a little bit about the story of B and a young girl at a supermarket?
Barbara and I were in discussions with a grocery chain called Save-A-Lot, and we were so concerned because having been a restaurateur, she knew the lack of real good, wholesome food in communities. And we toyed with and met with people, and we're in the middle of trying to find a way to do a supermarket, actually uptown in Harlem, that would be like a Save-A-Lot where you could get good, fresh food, but at a really affordable price. And so we went around and we went at the time into so-called food deserts in neighborhoods in Brooklyn and Queens and the Bronx. And it just so happened we were in one bodega and we saw a young Black girl. She was probably 10, 12, maybe 13 years old. And she was buying Aunt Jemima pancake mix. And Barbara went over to her and said, hello, and back and forth. Hi, I just want to ask you, do you know who Aunt Jemima is? And the young lady said, oh, yeah, she's a celebrity. She's very successful. And didn't know that she wasn't real, didn't know the whole nature of what Aunt Jemima was historically. And I saw a look in her eye, and I only seen that a couple of times when she thought something was really wrong. And she says, this is not right. She doesn't know that if someone called her Aunt Jemima, it would be an affront. And so we set about the task of going and said, this thing should be replaced. They should do something different. It needs to go away. We tried to go to the corporate leaders and say, hey, it's time to make a change. We were met with resistance, and that Aunt Jemima was a wholesome product. And I, in my letters to them, I said, there is not a Black woman in America that wants their daughter to be called Aunt Jemima. There's not a Black person in America that wants to say, I can grow up and be Aunt Jemima. But I never gave up, and I always thought about it. B says, I'm just going to go out and keep doing what I'm doing and be a representative of what Black women should, could, and will do. But like all things that happen in life, the universe ultimately moves for balance and moves for equality. And that's why through George Floyd's situation and the things that are happening with people that look like me, there's a groundswell of understanding that things are not right and that image is important.
What do you think it is, Dan, about the murder of George Floyd that has resonated so deeply with people that we're now seeing Confederate monuments defaced and in some cases thrown into rivers? You know, to your point with Aunt Jemima, what do you think it is about this particular part of history with the death of George Floyd that has finally gotten us to a place where we can say enough and we're not going to support this anymore?
When you see a man murdered in real time, if there hadn't been, once again, another young person, a teenager, having a video camera showing the world, and particularly people who are not like me, that this does exist, and this is almost standard operating procedures. When white folks finally realized that this is murder, and that I have white and Black friends, I eat the same foods, I listen to the same music, we share so much more together, we are Americans, it hit a nerve, and it created a groundswell. Americans we ultimately get things right, the vast majority. Now there's some population that will never, and there are racists in our society. By and large, the great number of people realized this was wrong. And I've had that happen to me. I was a TV producer. I had my face down on Burton Way in LA, putting together a TV show for Natalie Cole, and jogging back to my hotel at L'Hermitage, and a cop car jumps the curb, and I'm spread eagle in the middle of Burton Way, you know, with the same thing that happened to Jay Farrow from Saturday Night Live. That is not a 1 in a million situation for Black men. We're at a point in our lives where, you know, at 66 years of age, I can't take it anymore. People who are standing up and these people who are protesting every day are making a difference. And Aunt Jemima is the small crime that has become part of the filament of America, that people don't even think it's wrong. But there's not one person wants to be called Aunt Jemima, Black person. We become too accustomed to letting racial stereotypes become part of just like breathing. And enough is enough.
I couldn't agree with you more. Dan, B, unfortunately, has lost her battle with Alzheimer's, and I know that you carry her legacy forward, and you do that so well. What do you think she would say about this turn in history?
She would say, it's about time. She used to always say, her classic line was, I stand on a mountain of no's for one yes. We as a people have stood on a mountain of no's for one yes.
I can't thank you enough, Dan, for your time and your energy today and your words. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you, Stephanie. And you knowing who and what B represents mean the world to me, because I want you to do better, be better, grow faster, and be lace and steel.
I will try my best. I'm getting emotional now just talking to you, but I'll do my best.
My pleasure. You have a great day, okay?
You too, Dan. Thank you.
To learn more about TAPintoTV, visit tapintotv.net.
I'm joined by Bob Putt, the director of ABA New Jersey. Bob, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, Brian. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
So tell me what ABA is, the American Business Associates.
Well, ABA is a relationship-driven business development organization. It focuses on mid-sized companies in each of the regions that it's located. In our case, it's New Jersey. And what we do is bring together business professionals, decision makers, who create relationships over the course of time. They not only build their business financially by sources of referral, which most people think what networking is about, but they build themselves up as business professionals through the guidance and interaction of the other professionals that are in the room.
Now, you and I have spoken about ABA not being a networking group, it's a business development group. Tell me about what that difference is and how you see that working for professionals.
It is common practice that people feel networking or business development is transactional, that the value of networking is in getting a lead or getting a referral, getting new business. But the true networking, the true value in networking is business development by developing your life skills and your professional skills to become a well-rounded business professional.
So Bob, tell me who needs to be a member of ABA? Who really benefits from being a member?
Companies that want to grow professionally. They want to grow their business skills, they want to grow their relationships, they want to expand their business knowledge. In ABA, we don't take certain types of businesses, not because we don't want them or don't like them, they just don't fit in. And it would be a waste of their time and money to join an organization like mine. You know, we vet our members so we know that their business is compatible. We can trust their knowledge in their business and that they're going to give professional service when they're recommended. So these are all little factors, but the fact remains that everyone needs to network. You know, you need to network in your private life so much as your business life, but just people don't think of it that way.
Unlike other groups, it's not expected that the members are doing business amongst themselves. It's more about creating relationships and then being a referral for outside people that the members may know. Is that accurate?
It's very accurate. The difference in what we do is, A, we don't keep score. The real theme of ABA is go-giver, giving without expectation. The best thing you can do to develop not only your business skills, but your business in general is to be a giver. You know, you can give in many, many ways. Of course, you can give a referral and it's new business. That's the standard. But you can give somebody an article that will enhance their education on something they were not aware of. You can give somebody an introduction to an association that they had no access to. So being a go-giver is a big, big deal.
Tell me how the pandemic has changed ABA and how it networks and how you see it evolving beyond the pandemic.
The pandemic has had a dramatic effect on all networking or business development organizations. They're just like any other business. What's changed is people's understanding of what business development is. As I said earlier, they thought business development meant getting a referral. After the pandemic, they now thoroughly understand it is not that. It is resources. People that had the resources to maneuver through this pandemic came out of it so far ahead of anyone else because they were able to take care of business. They were able to take care of their insurance. They knew where they stood. Navigating the federal funding was a challenge for everyone. Every ABA member got the funding easily in comparison to the majority of other business professionals that we know.
ABA members had, as part of the membership, resources to at least one community bank that would advise them or at least give them input, if not actually help them apply. Is that accurate? Is that true?
It's very accurate. Connect One Bank has been the primary bank member of both ABA organizations in New Jersey for approximately, I'll say, 14 years. We were very, very fortunate to have the head of their SBA lending department as our member. Wow. So anyone that had a question or was meeting obstacles with their banks or their accountants had the opportunity to call them directly, call David directly to get help and guidance in how to navigate the PPP loan program. Secondarily, we had employment attorneys. Employment attorneys help people understand, what do I do with my employees? What is my obligation? How do I handle this? What do I tell them? And then thirdly, the financial community, we have a very robust accounting membership. We have very large international accounting firms, and we have local accounting firms. And we have a CFO company. So the CFO company gave you guidance as to, once you got the PPE money, what did you have to do with it? What are the requirements, so that you don't have a misstep and have to wind up explaining yourself on what you did with the allocation from the government. Right. So it was extremely important. And as I said, membership in ABA, they were light years ahead of most business professionals.
So lastly, I want to ask you, how do you see things being different in how you operate ABA and your business development groups?
Things are going to be very different. There's just no doubt about it, and in every facet of every business. It's just the way the world has turned. What I'm trying to do is create educational formats that will help and guide them as to how to come out of this pandemic. We were using the CARE program recently, which was explaining to people that they have to plan. They have to sit down and put it on paper, pen to paper. This is how you plan on coming out of this pandemic. In addition to that, we're doing a SWOT program. The SWOT program is going to help you evaluate your business. It's going to help you understand where your strengths are, okay, where opportunities lie, where your threats lie, you know, and what you can do to improve your business. And so we create focus groups for that, and people help you understand. They're the outside looking in at your business. So you have some aid here in evaluating how you're doing.
Well, thank you for joining me today. And here we are, getting back to business and back to video production after the pandemic. And I'm thrilled you could come in and speak with me.
Thank you very much.
To watch more Tap Into TV videos, subscribe to our YouTube channel at TAPintoTV.
I am thrilled to be joined today by Frank Supovitz from Fast Traffic. We're going to talk a little bit about his experience in the events industry and the success he's had with his book, what to do when things go wrong. And I guess, boy, we are in need of that advice. Frank, thanks for joining me today. How are you doing out there in Long Island?
It's my pleasure to join you, and so far so good. That's what anybody who's listening or watching can only say is so far so good.
Good. Can you speak to the concept of the things you know that can go wrong, but then the things you don't know that could go wrong, and how you plan to be able to react or respond to them? Could you speak to that?
Well, when you're in the planning stage of a project, whether it's an event or a new product introduction, planning is not the very first thing you do. What the first thing that you do is imagine. Imagine all of the things that can go wrong with your project. If you're planning, you're just figuring out how to get from point A to point Z. When you imagine, you may change what that plan is. You may change how you're going to go about building that plan, because you're going to find that there's a number of things that could challenge that system, that could challenge that project or that event that you're planning.
Not that I want to do a Monday morning quarterback or any of that, but let's talk a little bit about what our communities and our nation needs to do to plan for what's going forward in this healthcare crisis. And maybe, I guess I'd like to hear from you, what should we have done?
Well, a pandemic is something so incredibly pervasive, and that's the very definition of it. It's not an outbreak or an epidemic that you've kept under control. It's something that's already out there and it's already everywhere. And that I think is the biggest challenge with what we face is the notion that we've got kind of a patchwork quilt of regulations depending on where you are in the country. I think that's probably our biggest risk right now, is the fact that not everybody's playing by the same rules. Yeah. I think that's kind of a dangerous thing in our particular instance. It's something that we should have plans for. I'm not going to say should have had plans for, because maybe we did and I just don't know what they are, and we don't know what they are. Yeah. But this is something that really requires its own plan, because there's no point of refuge. There's no place you can go to kind of stop it. It's happening everywhere at the same time. Generally, if you're dealing with something that is not a pandemic, it's great to have a plan for anything, not a plan for everything. In this case, you want to have a plan for a pandemic. In life, you want to have a plan for anything, which is, okay, if something stopped what I'm doing, how am I going to deal with that?
I want to ask you about reacting, because all of us are dealing with that now. It's a trickle-down effect. We're dealing with that in an extreme way. This business is reacting and making decisions. We didn't see this coming, and it's trickling down. People are losing their jobs, et cetera, et cetera. We don't have a choice but to react in a lot of ways right now. But it's really about how, if I understand what you're saying, it's really about how well we have pre-thought some of this.
The fact is that I think that reacting is not the right thing. Right. I think responding is the right thing. Reacting is something that you do very, very quickly. It's response and stimulus. Something happens and you immediately react to that. I don't really think that's the right, that's not the right way to go about it. I think you have to respond. You have to step back a second. It may take a second, it may take 10 seconds, it may take 10 days to come up with the right thing, right. But responding is much more thoughtful. And it really avoids what's best known as the law of unintended consequences, right? You make a decision and it has a particular effect, and sometimes that effect isn't the one you want. And the notion that we're anxious to get sports and entertainment and people back to work, and you don't want to do that so quickly by reacting to the fact that the economy is down the dumpster, which it is, and I get it, and people are suffering. But at the same time, you don't want to react to the point where now you're going to be back in the same place where you are now 3 months from now.
Let's shift gears, if you don't mind. I want to hear about about your book, because you've had a lot of success with it. People are really all over it now, of course, too. But prior to the pandemic, it really had some traction. What to do when things go wrong. Can you tell me what was the genesis of the book? How did you go down the path to write it?
You know, when I left the NFL in 2014 and started my own firm, a lot of companies, not just event companies, but insurance companies, real estate companies, media companies, would call and say, could you come and talk to us about how you manage big projects? And I said, and everybody talks about all the great things they've done in their career. What about talking about the things that went just totally sideways?
Absolutely.
and how you managed them and how you dealt with them, what kinds of things you learned along the way, because frankly, you know, not everything you're going to do is going to be perfect, and not everything you're going to do is going to be effective. But you learn, and you learn more from things that go wrong than things that go right. But it's better to learn from somebody else things that went wrong for them, right, at the end of the day. So I started talking about that, and that became very popular. And then it became a book, because of the success of those speaking engagements. Sure. And I really started to understand that although problems don't have a pattern, the way you respond to them do, the way you manage them, there are patterns there. And that's where we came up with the notion of imagining the problems before you even start planning, how you plan to deal with those things, how you manage in real time while you're executing your projects and your programs, and how you respond when something does go wrong. And then lastly, and the last part of the book is evaluating, you know, how you did and what kinds of things you learned and what you put into place in the future to make sure that you're better prepared the next time something happens. Because, you know, what the book says, and it's 100% true, if it hasn't happened to you, it just hasn't happened to you yet.
Yet, right, of course. Yeah. Wow. Where does blame and fault come into that dialogue?
Well, let's start with one thing that's really important. In the heat of the moment, blame is not important. It doesn't matter whose fault it was. It's your problem if you're the business owner, if you are the chief executive in charge of a particular problem or a project. It's your solution that is going to make the difference. It's your response that's going to make the difference. You may have had nothing to do with making it go wrong, but it doesn't matter. What matters is solving the problem. It's important later to find out what the real issue was, because you want to make sure it's not replicated, that you're able to make sure that there's a plan in place to, number one, make sure it doesn't happen again. Number two, if it does happen again, how you're going to deal with it.
I could speak with you an entire another hour. This is all such incredible input and great advice. Frank, tell me where people can learn more about you and your company, Fast Traffic, and where they can get the book.
Well, our company is really a business-to-business company. We're in the event world. A lot of what we do is white labeled for other organizations, but you can find us at fasttrafficevents.com. And the book you can get, it's published by McGraw-Hill. You can get it on Amazon as a Kindle. You can get it as an audiobook as well. If you just love listening to my voice, you can hear me read it. And you can get that on Audible, also through Amazon, Kindle, hard copy, etc., or through any bookseller.
Wow. I can't thank you enough. Incredible advice, really good at this time, very valuable, but also really for everybody, including business leaders. I hope you stay safe and well out there in Long Island, and thank you again for joining me.
You too. Stay safe, stay healthy, and do everything you can to stay that way.
Same for you. Take care.
Tune in next week for another episode of Tap Into TV. Don't forget to follow us on social media, and you can watch any of our video segments anytime at tapintotv.net. Thanks for watching, and please stay safe and healthy.
So, would you clap a couple times? We're in 4/4 time, everybody.
Yeah.
None of this 6/8